Hare Krishna. So today we have our meeting number 17, and today we have the conclusion of the second canto. Today we will finish seeing chapter 2.9, and we will see chapter 2.10, right? The last chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the first topic for today is the conclusion of the Catuh-sloki Bhagavatam, right? So so you can see here on the slides. Here is still chapter 2.9. So in the previous part, we studied the meaning of the Catuh-sloki Bhagavatam, right? The four original verses that Krishna spoke to Brahma in answer to his four questions. So just to start, here is a summary of Brahma's questions and the answers that were given to these questions in the four verses. So the first question was that what are the forms of the Lord, both in matter and in transcendence? How can the universe be created from the energy of the Lord? And how can be the Lord present in it if he has no material form? Right? So the answer is that the Lord is a person, right? And he is the possessor of inconceivable energies. And everything is the energy of the Lord. Therefore, the Lord is in everything, right? So although at the same time, he's present there in his eternal abode in the spiritual world. So the material world is a permutation, or is a reorganization of the external energy of the Lord. And thus the Lord is also present in it, of course. Although at the same time, he's aloof, right? So he's here and he's not here at the same time. So all the souls, they are parts and parcels of the Lord, but at the same time, we are separate individuals. So again, two things at the same time. And that is one interesting quote here. So, Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, one that was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead, right? So interesting quote, right? Everyone remembers this one. So then the second question: how are the different energies of the Lord working, right? How does the Lord manifest the different energies that are responsible for the generation, maintenance, and annihilation of the universe? And the answer is that everything is born from the Supreme Lord, right? Including all living beings and Brahma himself. So the Lord is also the source of the material manifestation, the spiritual worlds, and everything that exists, right? There is nothing that exists that is not connected with the Lord, right? So Krishna has two main energies, the Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. Yoga Maya means when we see things in the proper perspective, right? In connection with the Lord. And detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord, separating, right, something from the Lord, means to be under Mahamaya. So the souls are thus not independent, right? Any sense of independence from the Lord is just a product of illusion. And there is a verse for that also. We all studied this verse. Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. No as my illusory energy. Right, so just got here. Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relationship to me, has no reality. Which know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. And then question number 3, how does the Lord play with his different energies? Just like a spider produces the web, maintains it, and in the end absorbs it back, right? So how does it work? And the answer is that Krishna is inside of everything, right? But at the same time, he's outside, right? Situated in his own abode. These two things at the same time. So he's all pervading, but at the same time, he's localized, right? And this truth, it can be fully understood only by the practice of devotional service, right? This is emphasized in the third verse. And of course, the Lord urges Brahma to practice devotional service. So we tend to think that we understand, all kinds of spiritual topics by just studying. Oh, I read about that, and so on. But and of course, this is important. But there is also another necessary component, that is spiritual realization. Without such realization, even the simplest topics, they may escape our comprehension, like even after we studied them so many times. So the study of the scriptures, it does go hand in hand with spiritual practice and association with advanced devotees, right? They need to go together. Otherwise, it may not work so well. And then, quote again, next verse. "O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I am outside of everything." And finally, last question of Brahma, number 4. How can Brahma perform the duties entrusted to him without becoming conditioned by these activities, right? Also, interesting question. And the answer is that Brahma should dedicate himself to the practice of sadhana bhakti, right? Hearing and speaking about Krishna's glories, remembering him in all circumstances, in all space and time, right? Both directly and indirectly. And in this way, he may perform his work of creation without becoming conditioned by it, right? Just like Arjuna fought in the battle of Kurukshetra without forgetting the Lord at any point, right? So you see the parallel between Brahma and Arjuna executing their services, right? And the verse that speaks about that is, quote, "A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, both directly and indirectly," right? Haribol. And then, okay, so this is concluding revising the Catuh-sloki. Then next question, when did Brahma see the Lord, right? Brahma saw the Lord, okay, but when? That's a question that someone may ask. Because in verse 2930, right, after submitting his questions, Brahma prayed to the Lord that all his work of creation will not give birth to pride, right? And in answer to this, the Lord recommended him to just follow the conclusion of the 4 verses, right? Practicing devotional service and fixing his mind unto him, right? So that's a quote here. 2937, Krishna said that, "O Brahma, just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you, neither in the partial nor in the final devastation," right? Unquote. So one could question when this conversation of Lord Brahma and Krishna happened. And this is actually a difficult question to answer, because the focus of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the spiritual instructions, right? Not in the historical descriptions. So we are currently in the first day of the second half of the life of Brahma, right? This much we know. And this conversation happened in the very beginning of one of his days, right? But which one? Which day, right? So in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.413, Krishna describes to Uddhava that he spoke to Brahma at the beginning of creation, at the Padma Kalpa, right? Padma Kalpa means the lotus millennium. So the verse is, "Pura maya proktam ajaya nabye padme nisanaya mamadi sarge." O Uddhava, in the lotus millennium, in the days of yore, right, in the past, at the beginning of the creation, I spoke unto Brahma, who is situated in the lotus that grows out of my navel, right? So Krishna spoke that to Uddhava. So different days of Brahma, they receive they receive different names. And amongst all days of Brahmas, there are two kalpas, 2 days that are referred to as the Padma Kalpa. So the first Padma Kalpa is in the second day of the first half of the life of Brahma, right? Long time ago, many trillions of years ago. And this is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:11, 35 to 36. It says there, quote, "In the beginning of the first half of Brahma's life, there was a millennium called Brahma Kalpa, wherein Lord Brahma appeared. The birth of the Vedas was simultaneous with Brahma's birth. The millennium which followed the first Brahma millennium is known as the Padma Kalpa, because in that millennium, the universal lotus flower grew out of the navel, a reservoir of water of the personality of Godhead, Hari." Right? So we know that, okay, there is one Padma Kalpa, long time ago, second day of the life of Brahma. And then there is another one. The second Padma Kalpa is the current day of Brahma. It's also called Padma Kalpa because in this millennium, the lotus flower of Brahma also appears, right? Following the complete devastation at the end of the first half of Brahma's life. So the current day, it receives actually different names. It is also called the Varaha Kalpa and the Swetaswatar Kalpa, which can be confusing, like why so many names for the same day? However, on Srimad Bhagavatam 2:10-47, Prabhupada, he makes it clear, quote, "The present duration of a kalpa of Brahma is called the Varaha Kalpa or Swetasatara Kalpa, because the incarnation of the Lord as Varaha took place during the creation of Brahma, who was born on the lotus coming out of the abdomen of Vishnu. Therefore, this Varaha Kalpa is also called the Padma Kalpa, and this is testified by acharyas like Jiva Goswami, as well as Visvanatha Chakravarti Thakura, in pursuance of the first commentator, Swami Sridhar. So there is no contradiction between the Varaha and the Padma Kalpa of Brahma." So, okay, so here Prabhupada makes clear that, okay, it's the same day, don't worry, it just receives different names, because of different pastimes that happened, but it's the same day, okay. So, this is also confirmed by Sukadeva Goswami, who refers to the current Kalpa as the Padma Kalpa in the same verse. He says, this is 2:10-47. "O king, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features with the specific symptoms of each for the present, but for the present, let me explain unto you the Padma Kalpa." Right? So Sukadeva Goswami also refers to the current day as the Padma Kalpa. So, there is quite a lot of evidence on this point. So, as explained in this verse that I just quoted, the events described in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam onward, like all these pastimes, Devahuti, Lord fighting with Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu and so on, now Devahuti and Kardama Muni, Kasyapa Muni and Aditi, so many pastimes, they happened in the current day of Brahma, right? That is called Padma Kalpa. And the conversation between Brahma and Krishna, since there is two Padma Kalpas, it could have happened in the beginning of the current day or in the previous Padma Kalpa that was at the beginning of Brahma's life, right? I hope you are following. This is maybe a little bit difficult because I'm following so many different passages, but I hope you can follow it. Okay. So we reduced, from 18,000 days to 2 days. That it's possible, two possibilities. And okay, so which one? Is this day or the previous day? So in the Krishna Sandarbha, and that's section 64, text 5, Srila Jiva Goswami, he quotes a verse from the Gopala Tapani Upanishad, and that's verse 1.27. So the verse is, you can see here on this slide, Tadu Hovacha Brahmana Asav Anavaratam Me di Jitya Stuta parardante sobudhyata gopavesho me purastad avirbhabhuva. Right? So this is the verse from the Gopala Upanishad. And then, okay, I put here the word for word here on the slide, just to know if you don't trust me, you can check for yourself, no problem, no hard feelings. And then the translation that for this verse is, Brahma replied, "O Brahmanas, during the first half of my life, I remembered and glorified him constantly. Then, at the end of a parada, the Supreme Purusha awoke and appeared before me as a cowherd boy." And I put here the word for word because this is my translation. So I put here just, if you don't agree with me, you can check, right? If I translated correctly. So see, so the verse says that the verse is Brahma describing, right, that he meditated during a whole parada, during the first half of his life, and then after this first half of his life was complete, Krishna appeared to him as a cowherd boy. So in this verse, Lord Brahma speaks to the four Kumaras, and Brahma discloses, right, that Krishna appeared to him in his original form after the end of the first half of his life. And this is parardante, the word for that. So since we are on the first day of the second half of his life, this would put the meeting at the beginning of the current day, which is also called Padma Kalpa. So, okay, so this is my investigation. So this is a thesis, right? I'm not telling this like as absolute truth, but it's my thesis. You may accept or not. So if this version is accepted, then the chronology of the Bhagavatam is that Brahma had the darshan of the Lord, and he received the Catuh-sloki, Srimad Bhagavatam, from him at the beginning of the current day, right? And then Brahma transmitted this knowledge to Narada Muni, who transmitted it to Vyasa. Vyasa then expanded this knowledge and spoke it to Sukadeva Goswami. And then it expanded further, this description, to Maharaja Parikshit, right? Then everything makes sense, right? The whole chronology that we have on the Bhagavatam that is described on the second canto onwards, it makes sense. Everything falls into its places, right? Okay, so this is about the when Brahma met Krishna, and then who he met, Narayana or Krishna. That's another point that can be discussed, right? Because although the description of Lord Brahma seeing Vaikuntha Loka suggests that he spoke to Lord Narayana, and that's the way that many interpret this passage from Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada, he insists on his purport to 2937 that he spoke directly to Krishna in his original form, right? That's conclusion of Prabhupada. So he says, as in the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, has summarized the whole text in 4 verses, namely, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, etc. So the complete Srimad Bhagavatam has also been summarized in 4 verses, Aham Evasam Evagre, etc. Thus, the secret purpose of the most important Bhagavatit conclusion has been explained by the original speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam, who was also the original speaker of the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And the Bhagavad Gita also has 4 main verses that starts with Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, right? The 4 verses after that, just like the Srimad Bhagavatam. The 4 verses start with Aham Sarvasya Evagre. No, Aham Evasam Evagre, right? So there are 4 main verses on the Bhagavatam and also on the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so to sustain this point, Prabhupada, he quotes the same verse from the Gopala Upanishad that I just quoted, that describes this point, right? Gopavesha me purusha purustad avair babhuva, which means the Lord appeared before Brahma as a cowherd boy, Gopa Vesha. That is the original personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, Govinda. So you see, this verse from the Gopala Upanishad answers so many questions, right? So, okay, so Goloka Vrindavan is the topmost planet of the Vaikuntha Lokas, right? Therefore, when the verses mention Vaikuntha, it also includes Goloka. Just like mentioning a country also includes the capital, right? Just like you say, I don't know, United States, and then you say Washington. And then someone says, oh, you contradict yourself. Is United States or is Washington? Like, Washington is where? In France, you know? so, so it's like that, right? When you speak about a country, the capital is included there. So when we speak about Vaikuntha Lokas, Goloka Vrindavan is included. Goloka Vrindavan is also part of the Vaikuntha Lokas. So when we mention a country, it also includes the capital, although, of course, not all parts of the country are the capital, right? So Prabhupada also notes that Brahma describes Govinda in the Brahma Samhita, which is a very ancient scripture, right? It was spoken by Brahma much before the appearance of Krishna in your planet. So it would not be possible for Brahma to describe the Lord so eloquently, right, in the Brahma Samhita, if he had not seen the Lord before, right? If he didn't have the personal darshan of the Lord before. So in this way, we see that all these pastimes, they come together in a single timeline, right? Narada Muni, in his previous life as a boy, he was living in the previous day of Brahma, right? And then he merged into the body of Mahavishnu together with the great sages, following the complete devastation at the end of the previous day of Brahma, right? This is described in the first canto. And this concluded the first parada, the first half of the day of Brahma, the previous day. And then at the beginning of the current day, the lotus flower again sprouted from the navel of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Brahma awake in complete darkness, right? And then after trying to understand the situation by experimental means, climbing down the lotus and so on, he heard the word tapa and he started to meditate, right? And because Brahma remembered and glorified the Lord constantly during the first half of his life, the Lord agreed to appear to him, like in this day, in his original form, and he transmitted to him the knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the form of the 4 original verses, right? And of course, later, Brahma instructed this knowledge to Narada Muni and also composed the Brahma Samhita, right, with his heartfelt prayers to the Lord. And the Brahma Samhita, it was originally much more extensive. We don't know how long it was, but nowadays we have access only to the 5th chapter, right? Was the only one that survived the passage of time, right? Mahaprabhu himself, he found the manuscripts of these books now that is so beautiful and so important. And just another point, another argument is that one can ask, like the fact that Brahma describes that I was constantly glorifying the Lord in the first half of my life doesn't mean that he was not doing anything, that he was just glorifying. Of course, he was working, he was, creating the universe day after day. It's just that, during this process, he was constantly glorifying the Lord. And as a result of that, in the current day, the Lord appeared to him personally. And then next topic is the Lord disappears, right? We are still on chapter 9. And then verses 37 to 39, they conclude the description of the meeting of Krishna and Brahma, right? So after speaking, the Lord disappeared. Boom. And after offering his respects, Brahma started his work of creation, right? So it mentions that Brahma, he began to recreate the universe the way it was previously, right? Brahma, he doesn't create the universe according to his wings, right? He creates according to the project that is conceived by the Lord, right? So in this way, the universe is always created in the same way, but in a renewed state. The material energy is never transformed into something else, but it is permutated or rearranged in the form of the material creation. So when the universe is destroyed, the material energy, it just returns into its original state, right? Just like, for example, if you have a lot of Lego bricks, right? And they can be assembled in the form of different toys, and therefore, and after they can be disassembled, right? And there is no transformation of the blocks, right? The blocks remain the same. So in this way, the same material energy can be reused eternally in the different cycles of creation, right? Which are connected with the breath of Lord Mahavishnu, because there is no transformation. The elements are just assembled and disassembled, assembled and disassembled, right? They never change. They just are assembled into different forms, just like like this example of Lego blocks. So from verse 40, the focus of the conversation returns to Sukadeva Goswami, right? And he starts to narrate another ancient conversation in which Brahma transmitted the knowledge of the Catuh-sloki Srimad Bhagavatam to Narada Muni after he was pleased with him, right? So in the previous chapter, we had Brahma speaking with Krishna, receiving this knowledge. Now Brahma will transmit this knowledge to Narada Muni. So quote, Narada very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all sages and the greatest of all devotees, O king. The great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. Thereupon, the supplementary Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead, which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father Brahma to his son Narada. In succession, O king, the great sage Narada instructed Srimad Bhagavatam until the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, on the bank of the river Sarasvati. So these are verses 42 to 45 of 9th chapter. So at the beginning of creation, Brahma created several exalted sons, right, directly from his mind. So the most exalted of them, they were Daksha, the 4 Kumaras, and Narada Muni. So Daksha received from Brahma knowledge about karma, right, the path of fruitive activities, right, karma kanda. The 4 Kumaras, they received knowledge on the path of Jnana, right? Jnana Kanda. And Narada Muni, he received knowledge about devotional service, right? Which is Upasana Kanda or Bhakti Kanda. So it appears that this conversation, it happened after the conversation between Brahma and Narada that is narrated on chapters 5 to 7, right? Of the 2nd canto. So this second conversation between Brahma and Narada, in turn, appears to have happened before the events connected with the first Manvantara that are described in the third canto, like the creation of Swayambhuva Manu, the appearance of Lord Varaha, and and so on, right? Devahuti and Kardama Muni, these are all events from the first Manvantara, and we will see this on the 3rd canto. So this conversation that we will see now, Brahma and Narada, is before that, before the events of the 3rd canto. So although the original Srimad Bhagavatam, it has only 4 verses, right? It describes 10 separate topics that are explained in summary form on chapter 10, right? On the 2nd canto that we will see now. But they are explained more extensively in the rest of the book. So Brahma described the 4 original verses to Narada, but Narada expanded this knowledge when teaching it to Vyasadeva, right? Who in turn expanded it more when describing to Sukadeva Goswami. So similarly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he instructed Srila Rupa Goswami in a nutshell, right? But Rupa Goswami, he expanded this knowledge into so many books, right? So that's a characteristic of transcendental knowledge, that it can be expanded like unlimitedly. So the same Srimad Bhagavatam can be described in 4 verses or 18,000 verses or 1 billion verses, and anyway, it remains powerful, right? Just like Krishna can be infinitely big or infinitely small without losing his potency, right? Very interesting, right? And now we enter into chapter 10. Bhagavatam is the answer for to all questions, right? So this chapter is called like this, like Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions, because in this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami, he expands the meaning of the 4 original verses and shows how they answer all the remaining answers of Maharaj Parikshit, right? So although there are just 4 verses, right, in the Catuh-sloki, they represent 10 separate topics, which are described in each of the 12 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam in different levels of details, right? So all the 12 cantos, they speak about these 10 topics. It's just that some cantos, they speak more about one topic and more about other topics, right? So these 10 topics may not be obvious in the text in all cantos, but when the 4 verses, they are fully understood, then all the 10 topics, they become apparent everywhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in all cantos. So, like, very mystical, right? So Sukadeva Goswami, he describes these 10 topics in verses 210.1 to 210.7, right? So, okay, so I'm going to describe now what are these 10 topics, right? So here on the slide, you have only a list of the 10 topics, but now I will explain more. So the first topic is the creation of the universe, and this is called Sarga. So this topic includes the creation of the material elements, right, including the 5 elements, like fire, water, earth, air, ether, and also sound, form, taste, smell, touch, and then the ears, the eyes, the nose, the tongue, the skin, and the mind, and so on, all the material elements. This is called Sarga, primary creation. And originally, right, the pradhana, right, this mass of all material elements, right, the pradhana is the non-differentiated, mass of the material elements, and also the 3 modes of material nature in an unmanifested form. So, so after Lord Mahavishnu, he impregnates this pradhana with kala, right, the time energy, then there is interaction between these, right, the elements, the 3 modes, and these they create all other elements in succession, right? And this work is done by Lord Mahavishnu himself through his energies. This happens before the birth of Brahma. And this process of sarga, or primary creation, is done only 2 times during the history of the universe, right? Like one is like at the beginning of the life of Brahma, and second is in the first day of the second half of the life of Brahma, right? And then there's the first topic, Sarga. Then there is first topic, Sarga, right? Then the second topic is the sub-creation, Visarga, secondary creation. So the sub-creation or secondary creation includes the work performed by Lord Brahma, right, in creating the different planets and other structures of the universe, as well as creating the first inhabitants of the universe. So this is called the secondary creation because Lord Brahma, he creates on top of the work done by the Lord in the previous processes, right? That's why it's called secondary. So Brahma also receives all the knowledge necessary to create the universe from the Lord, right? From the energy of the Lord, building according to instructions that are given by him, right? Brahma receives from the heart this knowledge of how to build the universe. So the Lord does the primary creator, and Brahma is the secondary creator, right? So, okay, that's the second topic, Visarga. Then there is the third topic, the planetary systems, and this is called Stitir. So this third topic is the discussion about the proper situation for the living entities living in different planets of the universe, right? And this situation is to obey the laws of the Lord, right? And to be in perfect, peace of mind under the protection of the personality of Godhead, right? So this is the third topic. So the conditioned souls who are illusioned, right, by the external energy and take the material creation as a place for the satisfaction of, their selfish desires, they remain in this material world, right, under the material laws, reaping the good and the bad results of their actions, right? But the ones who understand the Lord, use their time properly, they can go back to Godhead. Then there is a fourth topic that is protection by the Lord, that is Poshanam. So the jivas, they are called the marginal energy of the Lord. Why? Because they have free will, like they can choose between serving the Lord or trying to be separate enjoyers of the material energy. So when one wants to challenge the supremacy of the Lord, then he lives under karma, the different material laws and so on. But when a soul desires to surrender, then the Lord helps him in all possible ways so he can go back home, back to Godhead, right? Back to his constitutional position. And then number 5 is the creative impetus, utayaha. So the impetus for activity is the desire for fruitive work that binds us to this world, right? Like the desire for material activities. And it can be counteracted by the practice of Krishna consciousness, right? Just like the Lord instructed Brahma. And then number 6 is the change of manus, the manvantaras, right? So there are 14 manus in a day of Brahma. The first manu is Swayambhuva Manu, right? And the activities of Swayambhuva Manu will be narrated in the third canto. So we will know more about him there. So other manus there are number 2, Swarochisa, number 3, Uttama, number 4, Tamasa, 5, Raivata, 6, Chaksusa, 7, Vaisvata, and that's the current manu. Then 8, Sarvani, that's the next one. Then 9, Daksha Savarni. Then 10, Brahma Sarvani. Then 11, Dharma Sarvani. And 12, Rudra Sarvani. Then there is 13, Deva Sarvani. And 14, Indra Sarvani. So we are currently in the reign of the 7th manu, right? There are 4 more after that in the current day. So most of the events that are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, they happened during the reign of the 1st and 6th manus, right? And also there are pastimes that happened recently in the 7th manu. From the 2nd to the 5th manu, there are some pastimes, but less, right? So the main reason for that is the pastime of Daksha, offending Lord Shiva, that is described in the 4th canto. Because after being killed and then revived with the head of a goat, Daksha stopped his duties as a Prajapati, and he went to perform austerities for a long time to become purified from his previous offenses and get a new birth, right? Because he didn't want to live, like with the head of a goat. Right? So he got the goat's head in the 1st Manvantara, and he took his new birth only in the 6th Manvantara. And because Daksha is the main progenitor, this delayed the process of populating the universe. So that's why we don't have so many pastimes between the 2nd and the 5th Manvantara, right? Interesting, right? So, okay, so the names of the manus mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Swayambhuva Manu and so on, these are posts that are occupied by different personalities. Just like the names of demigods such as Indra, Surya, and so on. These are not names, personal names. These are posts, right? Just like to say, president. So the main duty of the manus is to give sadharma, right? Good guidance for human beings. Human beings who can take advantage of the scriptures and achieve the ultimate goal of life. And then, okay, so this is number 6, and number 7 is the science of God, Isha Anukataha. So this topic includes descriptions of the incarnations of the Lord, his different pastimes, also description of activities of great devotees, right? Because both the Lord and his devotees, they descend like in various planets of the material world to save the conditioned souls, right? So hearing about these pastimes can gradually attract us back to the spiritual platform. That's why they are included here. And then number 8, winding up of the cosmic manifestation, and this is Niridaha. And like at every cycle of creation of the universe, just a small, like relatively small number of souls go back to Godhead, right? So the ones who remain forgetful of their relationship with the Lord, they merge back into the body of Lord Mahavishnu, right after the destruction of the universe, and they sleep there until the beginning of the next creation. So this process is Niridaha. And then number 10, liberation, mukti. And this is the so like the promotion of the soul to the celestial planets is like a temporary situation, right? It's not eternal. After one goes there, but after the pious credits are exhausted, he has to come back. So liberation, however, is a permanent situation. When a soul is able to leave both the gross and subtle bodies and go back to Godhead, right? Attain the spiritual planets. So when this happens, then there is no need to come back ever, right? So this is liberation. And then finally, number 10, the summum bonum, ashraya. So Krishna is the original source of all energies, right? The summum bonum, right? The absolute. So Krishna is the absolute truth. And the absolute truth has 3 aspects: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, right? That was explained already. So Bhagavan is the supreme aspect, and even amongst the different expansions and incarnations of the Lord, Krishna is the last word, right? This was also proved. So he's the original candle that ignited all the other candles, right? He's the supreme shelter. So all the other 9 aspects, the other 9 topics, they have the goal of simply illuminating this 10th topic, right? That's actually the most important topic, the summum bonum, ashraya, Krishna. So the explanations we have in the 10th chapter here that we will see now, they are centered in the topics of sarga, the primary creation, and also ashraya, the goal of surrendering to the Lord. But all the other topics, they are implied, right? Therefore, it's considered that this chapter, this last chapter of the 2nd canto, it answers all the previous questions of Maharaj Parikshit, although not through direct answers, right? The answers, they are just implied there. And then in the further cantos, we will have these explained in much more details, and then all the answers will become clear, right? Okay, next topic is the adhyātmic, adhidaivic, and adhibhautic persons. That's a topic that Sukadeva Goswami, he decides to describe right at the beginning of the chapter. That may not sound so simple at first. Okay, so in verses 8 and 9, Sukadeva Goswami, he opens this topic. So he explains about these 3 topics, right? The adhyātmic, adhidaivic, and adhibhautic persons. So I'm going to quote here the 2 verses. Okay, so 8 and 9. The individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the adhyātmic person, and the individual controlling deity of the senses is called adhidaivic. The embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the adhibhautic person. All 3 of the above-mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood. But the Supreme Being, who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter, is the independent of all, and therefore he is the supreme shelter. Okay, unquote. So this may sound like a very difficult, very complicated description, but actually it's not hard to understand. So first point, the adhyātmic person means us, right? The person who is seeing, touching, etc. Then B, the adhidaivic person means the demigods who control our material senses, right? Without the cooperation with these demigods, no one can see or touch, etc. And then C, the adhibhautic person, means the different material forms that we can see, and touch and so on, including our bodies, the bodies of others, and everything else. So for the process of seeing to happen, for example, these three things are necessary, right? There must be an observer, there must be the cooperation of the demigods who control the vision, right? Because otherwise, without the demigods, the vision will not work. And also need to be some object that can be observed, right? Only when we have these three things together, the process of seeing happen, right? So these three things, they are interdependent, right? Because without an observer, there is no activity of the senses, right? If there is no cooperation from the demigods, one can see, right? His vision is useless, and like the eyes will not work. And if there is nothing to be seen, also, what's the point of having eyes, right? If there is nothing to be seen. So in this way, if one of these three factors is absent, the process of observation doesn't happen, right? The sunlight is useful because we have eyes. If we didn't have eyes, if we were not able to see, or if there was nothing to be seen, then the sunlight would be useless, right? So just like in this example, there are many other things in the material creation that are interdependent, right? And this leads to the logical conclusion that someone created these things in this way, right? Someone created the universe in the like the way it is, right? Composed of so many interdependent factors, right? So the fact that everything depends on something else leads to the conclusion that there is someone who is independent, who controls all the others, right? So this example, therefore, is used to maintain the idea that there is an ultimate shelter, or an ashraya. Ashraya means shelter. There is an ashraya, shelter, an ultimate shelter for everything that exists. And who is the shelter? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Haribol, Krishna. He gives shelter to anyone, right? But he doesn't depend on any other shelter. He's fully independent, right? So this example is given to give us this realization that there is someone who is independent. So, so this explanation is given to bring us to the conclusion that we should take shelter in the Lord, right? Abandoning our idea of, independence, right? Okay. Then next topic, creation of the universe, still here on chapter 10. So after making this point clear, Sukadeva Goswami, he proceeds to explain the process of creation of the universe, right? So this is chapter 10, verse 10. So he says, quote, after separating the different universes, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, Mahavishnu, which came out of the causal ocean, the place of appearance for the first Purusha Avatara, entered into each of the separate universes, desiring to lay on the created transcendental water, Garbhodaka. Right? So the creation of the material universes starts with Lord Mahavishnu, right? So he lies in the Karana ocean and he creates all the material universes. Then he enters into each universe as Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu, like lying on the Garbhodaka ocean, right? Inside each one of the created universes. And here is not mentioned, but the Garbhodaka ocean is created by Lord Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu himself, right? By his perspiration. He fills up the universe, half of the universe with water. So this explanation of the process of creation is given to present the necessity of the process of devotional service of the Lord, right? Which is, of course, the prime activity for all living entities, right? So this passage also, also explains about the independence of the Lord in all different incarnations, right? And the dependence of the living entities on him, right? Everyone depends on the Lord. So, quote, verse 12. One should definitely know that all material ingredients, activities, time, and modes, and the living entities who are meant to enjoy them all exist by his mercy only. And as soon as he does not care for them, everything becomes non-existent. right? So, unquote. So the Lord creates the material world and also destroys the world in due time, right? So the material manifestation, it exists under the limits of time. And while it is active, the living entities, they can perform their different material activities, right? Impelled by the three modes, and so on, right? So the goal, however, is that they may gradually come to understand, like, their original spiritual position. That's, actually the real purpose of the creation of the universe, not just for, the enjoyment of the living entities. So everything becomes non-existent, refers to the unmanifested state, right? When everything merges back into the body of Mahavishnu, right? So when this happens, the universe remains. So originally, right, the universe is created, so the universe remains manifested for 311 trillion years, right? That's the life of Brahma. And then the universe becomes unmanifested. After this period, the universe becomes unmanifested. It is destroyed. And the souls, they go to sleep in the body of Mahavishnu for the same period of time, right? 311 trillion years more. And quote 13 and 14. The Lord, while lying on his bed of mystic slumber, generated the seminal symbol, golden in hue, through external energy out of his desire to manifest varieties of living entities from himself alone. Just hear from me how the potency of his lordship divides one into three, called the controlling entities, the controlled entities, and the material bodies in the manner mentioned above, right? Unquote. So, okay, so in verses 8 and 9, there was a discussion about the interdependence of the adhyātmic, adhidaivic, and adhibhautic persons, right? We just explained about that. And these are the living entities, the demigods, and the material bodies. So the three are interdependent, and thus one can't exist without the other, right? Now, these two verses, they describe how these three are created by Lord Mahavishnu from the primordial material energy. So while laying down, right, in his transcendental sleep, the Lord generated the principle of creation, right, composed of the three. So the Lord is interdependent, and by his desire, he generates many sets of interdependent things, right? And Prabhupada explains this in his purport, that no one has independent existence, just as no electric lamp has independent effusions. Each and every electrical instrument depends fully on the total powerhouse. The total powerhouse depends on the reservoir of water for generating electricity. Water depends on the clouds. The clouds depends on the sun. The sun depends on creation, and the creation depends on the movement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, right? So see, without the help of the Lord, the electric lamp, it doesn't work, because without the Lord, there is no sun, there is no clouds, there is no water, there is no river, there is no dam, there is no, generation of electricity, and consequently, the lamp will not work, right? So Krishna is the cause of all causes. All these examples, these like seemingly complicated examples, they are just to prove this point. So it's important to keep in mind that all these steps described here are part of the primary creation, right? These are all subtle creations that preceded the creation of Brahma. All the cosmic manifestation is first created in a subtle form, and later Brahma gives physical forms to all the creations done by Mahavishnu, right? So the creation of Mahavishnu is the principal step, is the main step. Just like the author of a book, it receives more credit, it's more important than the person who just prints the book, right? So Krishna is the author, and Brahma is like the printing house. He just puts on paper, right? The book that Krishna created. So the next verse is from 15 to 31. Describe the creation of the Virat Purusha, the universal form. And this is when the different components of the universe, they come into existence in a subtle form, as an idea, we can say, right? Subtle. And then, and later, when Brahma is generated from the lotus flower, like sprouting from the navel of Lord Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, then he creates the universe following this project, right? He gives physical forms to everything. So one may think that this creation that the creation done by the Lord is less important than the physical creation done by Brahma. But no, it's the opposite, right? Like at this stage, it's like the Lord is writing the book, and Brahma later will just print the book, right? It's more important. The work of writing the book is more important than the work of printing the book. Like anyone can print the book, but only the author can write it, right? So anyone can create the universe if he's empowered by the Lord, but only the Lord can do the work of the primary creation. Okay, so the creation of the Virat Purusha, it includes the following stages, right? So there is a long list here that I'm just going to give. So again, the main purpose of the description of this description is to emphasize the point that everything is connected with the Supreme Lord, right? No one and no thing is independent from the Lord. So okay, so first point, A. From ether, sense energy, mental force, and bodily strength are generated. So these three, they dictate the movements of all entities, right? Allowing them to act in their world according to their desires. So one is propelled to act because of the pull of the senses, like I want this, I want that. And the action is coordinated by the works of the mind, right? And it can, however, be converted into physical activity only because the strength of the body, right? Because we have hands and legs. Otherwise, you can desire whatever you want, but you will not get it, right? So, and this is thus another set of interdependent things that is created by the Lord, right? We can move because the material energy itself is moving. And it is putting into movement by the Lord. So when this movement is stopped at the end of creation, then we also stop moving, and then we have to go to sleep inside the body of Mahavishnu. And this is described on verses 15 and 16. Then point B. So this, I know that this explanation is quite technical, but I'm trying to do my best to make it interesting. But it's quite amazing when we understand these topics about the creation of the universe. Then we start to see how everything in the universe is connected with Krishna. Then we start to see Krishna everywhere. That's the result of properly understand these instructions and examples that are given here in the second canto. If we can understand that, if we can understand properly the second canto, we can see Krishna everywhere. We don't need to be a pure devotee for that. Even, the way we are now, with whatever anarthas and contaminations we may have, if we can understand the second point, we can see Krishna everywhere, already from here, from this stage. So it's quite an important canto, right? Big blessing, right? To see Krishna everywhere. So, okay, so then second point, B. The Lord generated the sensations of hunger and thirst, right? And this led to the creation of the mouth and tongue. Also, all the tastes and Varuna, who is the demigod that controls it, right? So just like these three components were generated at this stage in the Virat Purusha, they develop in the body of each living entity when we are inside the womb. And this also follow the project created by the Lord, right? The sense, the tongue, the sensations, the nerves that are necessary, and this is connected with the demigod. You see, Krishna created the idea during the creation, and when we are in the womb, this develops into our bodies, right? And also into other features of the universe. So we can thus see that this is another example of interdependence between the adhyātmic, adhidaivic, and adhibhautic person, right? These three. So the Lord creates the adhibhautic, right? The senses that compose, the different bodies, and we use these bodies. And then the adhidaivic, right? The demigods that control them. And it's only because that the adhyātmic, right, the living entities, only because of that the living entities, the adhyātmic, they can enjoy these sensations, right? If not for the Lord, we will not have tongues and hands and stomachs, and we will not be able to enjoy the word, right? So thus, all these different senses, they should be used for the Lord because they are created by the Lord. When we understand that, then we can see it in connection with the Lord. So different living entities, they receive different sets of bodies and senses according to their consciousness and activities. So the different demigods, they act thus according to the will of the Lord. So if one's karma is not to see, for example, like the eyes may be present in his body, but he will not be able to see because the demigod will withdraw his potency from the eye, right? So one may have eyes, but he will not see if his karma is not to see. So the adhibhautic, the eye, may be present, and there may be many things to see, but without the cooperation of the demigod, the adhidaivic, then the person, the adhyātmic, will not see, right? So that's interesting. And then see, apart from tasting, the mouth is also used to speak, right? So the property of speak, as well as the controlling demigods, they were generated next. And then then there is the nostrils, right? And also the odors that were created, the smells are created together. So another feature of the nostrils is respiration, right? So both the smell and respiration, they are under the control of the demigod of air. And he is in turn, like, under the control of the Lord, of course. So the different demigods, they award different living entities, different sets of senses according to their karma. But the whole system works only because of the Lord created it the way it is, right? So the system is composed of many interdependent things, and the Lord is the independent who created all these interdependent things the way they are, right? So the Lord is like the ultimate programmer, right? He can create systems that work perfectly without his further interference, for trillions of years, right? So one who knows about, software development, he can appreciate that. And then E. When the Lord desires to see, the eyes, the sun, the power of vision, and also the objects, the objects to be seen, they are created. And Prabhupada explains this point that the living entity can see only when the Lord sees. The living entity can smell when the Lord smells, and so on. The idea is that the living entity cannot do anything independently. He can simply think of doing something independently, but he cannot act independently. The atheist may think that, I don't need God. I can do everything by myself. But if Krishna inside the heart doesn't agree with that, he will not be able to see, he will not be able to touch. It's only because Krishna agrees with him that, okay, you can do without me. No problem, do, right? Only because Krishna agrees with that he can do it. If Krishna doesn't agree, he can't do. So it may sound strange that the Lord desired to see, right? Because the Lord can, already see, perfectly well in his spiritual form. So the desire of the Lord to see that is mentioned here is more connected with his compassion for us, right? So desiring to give us senses and everything else so we can, perform more material activities and then eventually go back to him, right? So once the souls, they fall into the material nature, the only way for us to go back is by receiving a material body and using this material body to cultivate Krishna consciousness. So you see, all the work of creation performed by the Lord is done to give us an opportunity to do so. So when the Lord desires to see, he desires to see for us. When he desires to smell, he desires to smell for us, to give us this possibility, right? So we can get these material bodies and we can use these bodies to go back to Godhead. And then F, the sense of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing and the objects of hearing become manifested from the desire of great sages to know about the self. And this indicates how our sense of hearing is properly used when we hear about Krishna, right? Again, connected with the Lord. G, out of the desire to perceive characteristics such as softness, hardness, warmth, cold, lightness, and heaviness, and sense of and so on, the sense of Taush was created. And this includes the skin pores, the hairs on the body, and also the trees that are the controlling deities of the skin. And then 8, from the desire to perform different types of works, the hands as well as the strength, for controlling them, and the acts that can be performed using the hands, they were generated, right? So at this stage, the controlling deity of the hands, Indra, was also created. Because when the Lord creates the hand, it's not just the hand, he needs to create, the muscles and the nerves and the bones, the parts of the brain that controls it, and also the demigods that, controls the hand, and also the objects that we can touch. It's not just, create the hands, everything else needs to be created. So we can use the hands, right? It's just like you can't create a car without creating a road, and without creating a gas station, and without creating, traffic lights. All these things, they are interconnected, right? Without one, the other is useless. So you see, the Lord, we can appreciate the work of creation of the Lord. And then E, from the I, from the sense, from the desire to move, right, from one place to another, then the legs were created. And alongside with the controlling deity, which is a demigod called Vishnu. Later on 3.6.22, Prabhupada, he clarifies that this Vishnu mentioned here is not the Supreme Lord, it's just a demigod who receives the same name. So just like how other senses, the legs, they should be used in the service of the Lord, right? Performing different types of sacrifice, devotional service, not just moving, here and there, just working like donkeys to, increase our standard of living and so on, right? It should be used for the Lord. And then J, from the desire to beget children and enjoy sexual pleasure, the genitals, along with their predominating deity, the Prajapati, they were generated. The functions of the genitals are thus connected with the universal form of the Lord, just like all the other senses. And they should be used in the service of the Lord, like not just for sensual enjoyment. And then one can ask, okay, how can I use it for the Lord? And this is answered in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna himself says that I am life, which is not contrary to religious principles, right? So sexual life inside marriage to beget children who will be educated as devotees of the Lord is also a form of devotional service and is a direct manifestation of the Lord. And then K, from the necessity of evacuating. The evacuating hole alongside Mitra, the predominating deity, was generated, right? So we can see that even for that we depend on the Lord, right? Without the Lord, we are doomed. We can't do anything at all. And then, okay, so L, from the desire to move from one body to the other, the navel, the vital airs that control the departure of the soul, and also that, they were all created, right? And these three are connected because the navel is the shelter of both that and also the vital airs that are responsible for moving the soul out of the body. And we studied this previously already, that yogis, they can control these vital airs and are able to control that by moving them from the navel to the top of the skull, right? And then M, that is to maintain the body, one needs to eat and drink, right? And for this purpose, the abdomen and the intestines, as well as the arteries, they were manifested. So the intestines, presided by the rivers, they're responsible for digestion, and the arteries, right, whose predominating deities are the seas, they are responsible for distributing the nutrients to all parts of the body. So they work together. And then N, when the Lord wants to see the activities of the material creation, the heart, together with the mind and its activities, determination, desire, and the controlling deity of the mind, the mind, which is the moon, were created. And these are all connected because the heart is a sitting place for both the soul and Paramatma, as well as the mind, right? So the activities of the mind, such as thinking, feeling, and willing, they can't exist without the heart, right, Jai? And then, according to the Vedas, the heart and not the brain is the center of consciousness, right? Interesting difference. So the soul is the center of consciousness, right? And the material desires and emotions, they are functions of the mind, right? Consciousness comes from the soul, desires and emotions, they come from the mind. So both the mind and the intelligence, they are part of the subtle body, right? And not the gross body. And they are centered in the heart. So the brain is more like an interface between the subtle body and the gross body. Like more or less like a bunch of cables that connect, different components of a computer. So if the cables are damaged, of course, something will stop working, right? Although the function is present, the function is present in the device, not in the cable, right? But if the cable is broken, the device will not work, right? If the cable breaks, your webcam will not work, or your mouse, or your keyboard, or something else will not work, right? So the function is not in the brain, but if something in the brain breaks, then something will stop working because some function of the body will not connect anymore with the corresponding function in the subtle body. And then, the gross body, right, which is composed of skin, flesh, blood, fat, metal, and bone, as well as the fine layers of nerves on top of the skin that is responsible for the touch sensation, they are created just out of three material elements, and that's earth, water, and fire. The vital airs, on the other hand, were created from ether, air, and water, right? So as Prabhupada explains, due to this combination, right, open air, regular baths, and ample spaces help to maintain vitality, and also fresh grains and vegetables, as well as fresh water and heat, are favorable to keep the body in a healthy state. Jai, right? So there are even some advices about health here in the second canto. So all the other objects, all the other senses and objects of the senses and the corresponding demigods, they are generated at this stage, right? So the scriptures, they describe the most prominent stages of creation, as well as the most prominent features of the universe. But it's not just because something is not directly mentioned that we should presume that it doesn't exist, right? The most prominent things are mentioned, but there are other, smaller secondary things that also exist. So the whole explanation is connected with this topic of Ashraya, right? This is the main topic amongst the 10 topics of Bhagavatam. Is all to bring us to this conclusion that I should surrender to Krishna and to help us to see Krishna everywhere, right? So by understanding how everything depends on the Supreme Lord, we can see him everywhere and we can easily surrender unto him. And Prabhupada explains this point. He says that the whole explanation is on the subject of the absolute dependence of the living entities and the absolute independence of the Supreme Lord. Less intelligent persons claiming to be on equal level with God must first prove themselves to be absolute and independent. And then they must substantiate their claim to being one with God, right? If one wants to say that I'm God, first of all, he needs to prove that he's completely independent of everything, right? It's okay. Okay, next topic. We are already finishing for today. The Lord is behind everything. So the remaining verses, starting from 32, they present a new topic, right? How the spiritual form of the Lord is behind both the universal form and the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, right? So it's described here, 32, 33, quote, the sense organs are attached to the modes of material nature, and the modes of material nature are products of the false ego. The mind is subjected to all kinds of material experiences, happiness and distress, and the intelligence is the feature of the mind's deliberation. Thus, by all this, the external feature of the personality of Godhead is covered by gross forms, such as those of planets, which are explained to you by me, right? Unquote. So material conditioning starts with the false ego, right? Our concept of false ego means our concept of a material identity separated from our original identity as eternal servants of Krishna, right? Because of the false ego, we fall under the influence of the three modes, which pull the mind, in different directions and make us act. So in material life, the intelligent is subservient to the desires of the mind, right? As well as the senses. So in this way, the uncontrolled mind, acting under the influence of the three modes of nature, make us act, in different ways in the material world, experiencing, both happiness and distress, right? So the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is originally created as a subtle form, right, as described here, containing all forms and experiences available in the material creation, right? Everything that exists. And then later, with the creation of Brahma, the subtle form is covered by gross elements, such as the planets, the different forms of living beings, and so on. And all these different coverings, they serve the purpose of allowing the materialists to have the illusion of acting independently from the Lord, as well, of course, as allowing devotees to practice the spiritual process and awaken their forgotten relationship with the Lord, right, Jai? So, however, the universal form, it just describes how the different energies of the Lord interact with the material creation, right? The real form of the Lord is completely spiritual and is transcendental to everything material, right? So it's explained here, or 34-35, quote, therefore, beyond this gross manifestation is a transcendental manifestation, finer than the finest form. It has no beginning, no intermediate stage, and no end. Therefore, it is beyond the limits of expression or mental speculation, and is distinct from the material conception. So neither of the above forms of the Lord, and then continues here, the same quote, neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by pure devotees of the Lord who know him well, right? So at the same time, all these things, they are the Lord, the universal form of the Lord, but at the same time, they are not the Lord because, this is not the spiritual form of the Lord. So the universal form, it has this ambiguous feature, right? Okay. If the universal form is not directly the transcendental form of the Lord, why is it described, right? So many times, we study like 3 times the universal form, right? Just here in the second canto, right? From different angles. So, why it's described if it's not the, transcendental form of the Lord? So, if the universal form is not the real form of the Lord, why does the second canto describe it in so much detail? So, there are 2 main purposes for that. So A is to help us to see everything in connection with the Lord, right? And understands that we are dependent on him, right? Leading us to the conclusion that we should surrender to the Lord, right? Ashraya. And number 2, B, is to counteract the idea that the material manifestation appears automatically by chance, right? Due to the work of the material energy, as it is propounded by, modern scientific theories, as well as classical philosophies, such as the atheistic Sankhya system. So it counteracts all of this. So you see, these descriptions here on the second canto are the thing that we need to study if we want to be able to explain Krishna consciousness in a scientific way for intelligent people who are influenced by scientific theories. That's where we learn to defeat these theories. Here in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, also in the Vedanta Sutra, these books that deal with, logic and arguments and so on. So this is explained in verse 45. quote, "There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. In reality, the Lord doesn't get directly involved in the material creation. Everything is done through his different energies. The Lord remains always aloof from it in his transcendental position. Even as Paramatma, he is just a witness to the actions of the living beings." And this is confirmed on verse 36. "He, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in a transcendental form, being the subject of his transcendental name, quality, pastimes, entourage, and transcendental variegatedness. Although he is unaffected by all such activities, he appears to be so engaged." And then verses 37 to 41 describe how the different species of living beings are created by the Lord, and different souls receive forms according to how they are influenced by the three modes of material nature. So souls influenced by goodness, they take birth as demigods in the celestial planets, right? The ones that are influenced by passion, they take birth as human beings, and the ones influenced by ignorance, they take birth as, plants and animals, and then they acquire the habits of these different species, right? However, this is not by chance. We are not, left to our luck, right? The Lord personally comes in his different incarnations to bring the conditioned souls back to the spiritual reality, right? The Lord doesn't just, abandon us here. He creates this world for us, but at the same time, he's constantly coming here, trying to, take us back, right? And when time comes, the universe is destroyed by Lord Shiva, just to be created again in the next cycle, right? So these are all different manifestations of the power of the Lord. But pure devotees, they go beyond that, right? They can join the Lord's personal pastimes in the spiritual world, right? Haribol. And then, almost the last topic for today are the cosmic cycles, right? Understanding the cosmic cycles. So text 46, it describes how this process of creation is repeated on each day of Brahma, right? As well as each cycle of complete devastation of the universe. So in his purport, Prabhupada, he makes a summary of the cycles by which the universe goes through. So it's useful to understand that, because actually these calculations, they may look something very, my God, how I can do that? So difficult to remember all these numbers, but they follow a logic. If you learn the logic, you can very easily remember all these numbers. So, okay, so now we are in Kali Yuga, right? These are the last of the 4 yugas. Kali Yuga lasts for 432,000 years, right? Before that, there was Dwapara Yuga, lasted for 864,000 years. And then before that, Treta Yuga lasted for 1,296,000 years. And then before that, Satya Yuga, which lasted for 1,728,000 years, right? Okay, how can we remember these numbers? To remember these numbers, you just need to keep in mind that Dwapara Yuga is double of Kali Yuga, Treta Yuga is 3 times, and Satya Yuga is 4 times. So it's very easy. 432 for Kali Yuga, then multiplied by 2 for Dwapara Yuga, multiplied by 3 for Treta Yuga, and multiplied by 4 to Satya Yuga, right? So, and then the 4 eras combined, they last for 4.32 billion years. And this is 10 times the extent of Kali Yuga, right? So you see, the only number that you need to remember here is 432. 432,000 years, that's Kali Yuga. And then you multiply 4 by 2 to get Dwapara Yuga, by 3 to get Treta Yuga, by 4 to get Satya Yuga, and by 10 if you want all the 4 eras together. And the 4 eras together, 4.32 billion years, is called Jivya Yuga. So 1 day of the demigods, it equals 360 days for us. That's a lunar year, right? 1 lunar year for us, 1 day for the demigods. And this is due to the particularities of the orbit of the sun and stars, and we will study this in the fifth canto a little later. But anyway, for now, 1 day of the demigods is 360 days for us. Therefore, one Kali Yuga lasts for 1,200 years of the demigods. Dwapara Yuga, 2 times, right? 2,400. Treta Yuga, 3 times, 3,600. And Kali Yuga, 4 times, 4,800 celestial years, right? And the 4 years together, one Jivya Yuga, lasts for 12,000 celestial years, right? You remember, just multiply Kali Yuga per 10. So people on the celestial planets, they live 10,000 celestial years, which, almost, complete cycle of the 4 years. They live for a very long time. So 1,000 Divya Yugas combined equal a Kalpa, or a day of Brahma, right? And this lasts for 4.32 billion years. That's 10 times the extent of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is 432,000, right? You multiply by 10, you get the Divya Yuga. You multiply by 1,000, you get a day of Brahma. And during the day of Brahma, there are 14 manus. So the 4.32 billion years of Kalpa, it equals just 1 day or 12 hours of Brahma, right? Not the night, just the day. And then there is also the night. The night lasts for another 4.32 billion years. And then the total of 24 hours, right? 1 day and night, it becomes 8.64 billion years, right? And then, so this is 1 day, right? Brahma lives for 100 years of such days. So the lifetime of Brahma is 36,000 days, right? 360 times 100, 36,000 days. That's the lifetime of Brahma. So to calculate the life of Brahma, we need to multiply 8.64 billion years. We multiply this for 36,000 days, and then the number is 311.04 trillion years. That's the life of Brahma. So this very long period is called a Vikalpa, and it equals to 1 breath of Mahavishnu, right? So this is the total period that the material creation remains active. So when the universe is finally destroyed, then there is another period of 311.04 trillion years, in which all the souls, they remain dormant inside the body of Mahavishnu. And then we combine these 2 periods, we have a Mahakalpa, right? Okay, so see, now you understand all these big numbers, right? And then, okay, so here, setting the chronology. So in verse 47, Sukadeva Goswami, he gives us an important piece of information for us to understand the chronology of the events that are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, important verse, he says, O king, I shall, in due course, explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features and the specific symptoms of each. But, for the present, let me explain unto you the Padma Kalpa. So, as explained previously, Padma Kalpa means the current day of Brahma. So here Sukadeva Goswami, he reveals that the events that are described in the 3rd canto onwards, they are events that happened in the current day of Brahma, and not just, random stories from different days, right? So the current day of Brahma is divided into the reigns of the different manus. Remember, there are 14 manus in a day of Brahma. We are in the 7th manu now, right? So there were 6 manus before. And most of the pastimes, they are connected with the reign of a particular manu. For example, Kardama Muni and Devahuti is from the 1st Manvantara. The birth of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu from Diti and Kashyapa, it's from the 6th Manvantara, and so on. So this makes it possible for us to understand the order in which these different pastimes, they occurred, right? So in this way, we can see that the Srimad Bhagavatam, it actually describes the history of the universe, right? The whole history of the universe is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we will study this, in the following cantos. So in verse 48, Saunaka Rishi, he inquires about Vidura, right? Finishing the 2nd canto, Saunaka Rishi, inquires about Vidura, right? And remember, Vidura was describing the first canto, right? He saved Dhritarashtra and so on. So the question was, what did Vidura do after abandoning the place, after being insulted by Duryodhana? And this question, it coincides with a similar question asked by Maharaj Parikshit after he heard the description of the 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami. So Parikshit Maharaja and Saunaka Rishi, after hearing this description of the second canto, they asked the same question, right? So Sutta Goswami he will answer the question of Saunaka Rishi by just continuing his description of the conversation between Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, right? Interesting. So the third and fourth cantos, they are centered around the conversations of Vidura with Uddhava and Maitreya Rishi while he was on pilgrimage, right? And these events, they happened before he returned to the palace to save Dhritarashtra, right? So Vidura was offended by Duryodhana, he left the palace. Then all the events of the third and fourth canto happened. And then after that, he returns to the palace, and we go back to the first canto when he saves Dhritarashtra, right? The Bhagavatam is structured like this, right? Okay, so this is it for today. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So today I will not be able to answer questions because I need to run to another program. But if you have questions, you can please, send to the chat, and then I will answer at night or tomorrow as soon as possible. Okay? So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaura Premanande. Haribo. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribo.